Okay, so thank you, everyone. I think I see everyone's joined that was coming in tonight. Welcome, everybody. I think I'm going to turn this over to David Sajecki from Sajecki Planning to start tonight's Town Dock Master Plan Visioning or workshop. So thank you very much, and David, over to you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. And also just echoing Andrea's comments, thank you to everybody for making yourself available tonight to help us out with the Town Dock secondary plan. We really appreciate it. And tonight we'll be sharing some very early initial thoughts around what the future of the Town Dock could look like and looking for your feedback. So it's very important to us that you've taken the time to help us out with that, and we appreciate that. And Dylan, thank you for pulling up the slideshow. Maybe I can just ask you to make it full screen. Thank you. And I'm just going to also add that as Andrea introduced myself, my name is David Sajecki from Sajecki Planning, and we are the lead consultant working with Andrea and the Town of Penetanguishene team on the secondary plan. I'll start off just by identifying what the purpose of the workshop is tonight, and then we will have a background presentation talking about where we're at to date with the study. It's going to include a summary of the consultation feedback that we have received during our previous consultation event, as well as from the Technical Advisory Committee with the town. We will also be showcasing 7 big moves that have been used to guide the development of master plan options. But the main purpose of tonight is really to present 3 master plan options and seek initial feedback related to the types of public spaces, the locations of buildings and public spaces, opportunities for new uses, as well as access to the town dock and the overall vision for the site. There will be an opportunity to provide for a question and answer discussion period to clarify any outstanding questions, as well as to seek input into each option, as well as to a vision statement. And at the end of the session, we'll be providing an update on next steps and also talking about how to stay involved in the study. So Dylan, if you can move to the next slide, please. The first bit of the presentation, just want to introduce a few virtual workshop tips. I don't know if everybody is used to this hopefully it's not the new normal, but the new normal during COVID for these virtual workshops. Today's session will be recorded. It'll help us to inform the study as we move forward through later stages. There'll also be an opportunity to provide written comment. Starting, I believe, tomorrow, there'll be a survey that will be posted on the town's website. And I believe Mishi will be speaking to that in a little more detail later. Please mute yourself unless you are speaking. During the question and answer period, please share your feedback verbally or by typing your comment using the chat function. Sarah Marshall from the town will be monitoring the chat function. And if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please message her, or you can also message her by email at smarshall@penetanguishene.ca. Next slide, please. And what I'm going to do now is actually just turn it over to Andrea Betty, and she is going to introduce members from the town, as well as from Sajecki Planning and the rest of the consultant team.
Thanks very much, David. So again, I introduce myself. I'm Andrea Betty, and so I'm the Director of Planning for the Town of Penetanguishene, and this project primarily falls under the Planning and Community Development Department, but I do want to recognize that the Town Dock area is managed and falls under the Recreation and Community Services Department. So this project is also being guided by the assistance of Sherry Desjardins, who's on the line tonight, our CAO, Jeff Lees, who's coming on the line. They're just in another meeting at the moment. Jeff Hamlin, who's our manager of capital projects, and Becky Breeden, who's from the County of Simcoe and is a part of the Economic Development Office there. I would love to introduce council tonight. They will be joining us shortly. Unfortunately, they've in a special meeting that's gone a little late. So as soon as they can, they're going to join into this workshop. So We do have 3 members of council who sit on the TAC committee with us. That's Councillor George Vadaboncourt, Councillor Brian Cummings, and Councillor Jill Sanama. And then from TAC members, we have 2 members of the public. Both of them are here tonight, Andy Myers and Stu Spires. They are our resident appointments to what we call the Technical Advisory Committee, who's been part of and is helping Sajeki Planning and their team with this project. Also, tonight we'll have Owen Taylor, who's here. He's a planner with the town, and he will be helping with this project as well. Maybe, David, I'll turn it back to you to introduce your team if you wanted to, and then we'll get going.
I was listening to the rules. I muted myself, but absolutely. Again, my name is David Sajeki with Sajeki Planning, and we are the lead consultant on the study, and we're focusing really on the land use plan as well as the urban design components of the study. From Sajeki Planning, we also have Ed Sajeki, we have Dylan Dewsbury, Mishi McCloskey. Mishi will be doing the facilitation tonight and leading the question and answer period. And if any questions come up that in French, we have Elise Como from our team as well too, who is available to answer questions in French. From the rest of the consultant team, it includes Strategy Corp, who are leading the economic feasibility component of the work. We have been working on the public consultation piece with Lura Consulting. They've been an advisor to it. And we have Scribe is working with us on, or will be, in terms of writing the report, just to make sure that what is identified is easily understood and implementable. So next slide, please. So throughout the event tonight, we have a series of 3 polling and warm-up questions. Andrea is going to pull these up on her through Zoom, and this should actually show up on each of your computer screens, and you just need to click on it. If for whatever reason it doesn't work on your computer, as I mentioned earlier, there is a survey that will be posted on the town's website tomorrow, and you'll be able to provide written answers to that as well too. So we hope you do that. But the first question is just a warm-up question, and it is, what season do you enjoy the town dock the most? Spring, summer, fall, or winter? And when you answer this, we'll receive the feedback, and we'll see where people vote. So we'll just give this a minute or a few seconds. Andrea, do we get to see the results in real time?
Sorry, I hit some buttons a little quick there. I meant to share the results, and I hit stop the poll and share the results instead.
No, that's okay. So I chose summer. It looks like a lot of people enjoy it the most in summer, but there's a lot of votes for fall as well too. And probably not too surprisingly, but winter. Well, I mean, there are snowmobiling options, but winter is the least popular. So Dylan, if we can move to the next slide, please. And the next slide is just the agenda for today. So we have until 8:30. If we go over a little bit, we're happy to stay on and continue the discussion. But we're aiming to have everybody sort of wrapped up and out of here by 8:30, because we do appreciate you taking the time out of your evening. But if people have some additional comments that they would like to make, we're happy to stay on a little bit later. The presentation component of it will be about 45 minutes, but it really involves a bit of a back and forth where we are looking for your input into the master plan options. But we will start with the project update and findings so far. Dylan Dewsbury from the Sejeki planning team will be providing an overview of 7 big moves that we have identified to direct the master plan for the town dock. We will then be sharing the 3 master plan options and asking for your input on that. Following this 45-minute session, we will then move to a discussion period, Q&A, where we've targeted around 20 minutes or so for that. And at the end of the evening, it will just be closing remarks and talking about next steps. So where we go from here. Next slide, please. So starting with project updates and findings, I'd like to start actually by talking about what the study purpose is. So Dylan, if you can, well, you're on the right slide. So what is a secondary plan? A secondary plan provides more detailed policies for the area. What they really look at are the types of uses that should be permitted, in this case within the town dock. And the image on the right is roughly showing the area that is within the study area. It provides directions on the locations and types of public spaces, the locations and types of buildings, and also identifies such as how does the area work from a transportation perspective, how much parking should there be, where should the parking be located, and how can we really look at design directions that can elevate the space to create what we're hoping it is already a jewel, but what we're hoping is a really great waterfront that is befitting of its location at the bottom of Main Street in the Bay. Why is a secondary plan being completed? It's to understand and provide a long-term vision for the potential opportunities for the town dock, and to create a long-term plan that identifies what is the types of investments that should be required in the future. What we are really hoping to achieve from this is to lay the foundation for an exceptional town dock and waterfront for all seasons, one that celebrates the town's history and culture, fosters linkages to parklands in the downtown, and creates a real amenity for the public and has continued public access to the waterfront. Next slide, please. This slide is just identifying the schedule. It's a relatively quick study. So it kicked off in November of 2020. In February, we held our first workshop, and that was a visioning workshop, just really talking about how people use the town dock today and what they would like to see for the future on the site. Today, we are talking about some of the initial master plan options that we've developed, looking for feedback that will help inform the plan itself, which is to be developed over April and May. In late May, we will be drafting the final secondary plan, and then it will be going to council in June. So everything should be wrapped up by June of this year, and that will sort of set the stage and the vision for the town dock. Next slide. The next few slides that I'm going to walk through before turning it over to Mishi just speak to some of the existing conditions that we see on site. The area itself, which may be a little hard to identify on this, but it's outlined with this black hatched line. That is the location of the town dock, and it is designated in the town's official plan as downtown and waterfront area. It is to reflect the historical core of the town, and it represents the greatest level of activity and highest quality of design that reflects the character and culture of the town. Permitted uses within the area include residential, commercial, and community facility uses. A few of the key studies that are informing our work are the community strategic plan, the town's official plan, recreational master plan, and a downtown community improvement plan. Next slide, please. There have been really kind of 4 key findings that we've identified in terms of background materials. And one of those is that in 2019, a parking utilization study was completed. And what it found is that in the summer, parking utilization at the town dock was 21%, and that within the downtown as a whole, the numbers that have been identified is that there are not a parking shortage. So that's one of the things that we're thinking about as we move forward too, is ensuring that there is adequate parking within the area, but finding that balance between how much parking we have and how can we also create this as more of a public space with an elevated design. The Tourist Information Center, there was a study of the number of visitors that visit the center, and those declined from 2016 to 2019. There's still a lot of visitors who are using the site, and in 2019, visits peaked in August with an average of 40 visits per day. And some of the most common reasons for visits included inquiring about boat tours, as well as local and regional attractions. Next slide, please. A couple of the other key items that have come up is that we understand there is the potential for a boat tours via Island Princess Cruise, and I believe this is very new information. Another key one is we know that just at the periphery of the study area is a sewage treatment plant, and it provides a constraint. It's a manageable constraint, but sensitive land uses, which include uses such as residential, are not permitted within a 100-meter buffer of the sewage treatment plant. But a review of it has identified that commercial uses are not considered sensitive. So those can be included as well as certain public uses. A hotel feasibility study was also completed in 2015, and it determined that at present, a hotel at the town dock is not viable as a standalone development. That doesn't mean to say that that is not something we're considering as part of the study, and it is one of the items that we are. And so with that, I am going to turn over the presentation to Mishi McCloskey, and she is going to discuss what we've heard to date in terms of community and stakeholder engagement.
Thanks, David. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. So yes, as mentioned earlier by Andrea, the Technical Advisor Committee has served as a steering committee and a source of, I guess, a community sounding board throughout this process. And we've had the opportunity to meet with them twice, once in phase 1 and 2, and most recently in phase 3 last week. So following the first TAC meeting, we completed a visioning workshop, which some of you hopefully attended. And through that workshop, we really explored the vision and guiding principles to help create the initial foundation for the secondary plan, and also in guiding our master plan. So, you know, basically, if we were to sort of put it in order, it's the vision, the guiding principles, big moves, master plan, and then the secondary plan. So it's a process. And in that workshop, we did some interactive activities. We looked at the current conditions of the town dock, as well as identifying opportunities and challenges in the future, or potential opportunities and challenges. We did have a third activity, which we didn't, there was such a great discussion that we didn't get to that one. So we put that one online, which was hosted by the town on their Connect Penetanguishene website. And that looked into, you know, 20 years from now, how do you envision the town dock lands? And we got some great feedback from the public through that online forum. In addition to that, we also conducted some stakeholder roundtables, and that was with several business owners, as well as the Severn Sound Environmental Association, the SSEA, and Discovery Harbor. So, you know, just making sure that we cover different stakeholder groups that would have an interest in the lands. Lastly, next, we also looked at different online activities, leveraging the Connect Penetanguishene platform. So doing a discussion, you know, posting these materials online, recording our sessions. So this too will be recorded and be available after this evening's session to view at a later time. Next slide, please. So just a few, we got a lot of great information from both the visioning workshop as well as the survey, and I'll get to the survey a little later on the next slide. But just to sort of, to capture what we heard, people identified that maintaining public access is the top strength in the town dock. And then the biggest weakness was the aging buildings and facilities. So, the TIC, the Tourist Information Center, and public facilities such as washrooms and showers were identified as needing an upgrade. Excuse me. As far as the most important opportunity, connections to the town. So improving those connections to downtown, making sure that, locals and visitors could enjoy the waterfront, all year round were identified as a high priority. As far as challenges, the most critical challenge that was identified for the future is really maintaining that public access to the waterfront. There's been some discussion about opening up, private development opportunities, and really maintaining that public access was really identified as a critical aspect. Next slide, please, Dylan. So onto the Looking Ahead survey, which received a high number of responses, nearly 300. And, we asked an array of questions that were based on the visioning workshop. But we didn't want to bore you with all the details, but we found this one in particular very interesting. So, three words or three statements that would best describe the town dock. And maybe these are obvious to those attending the call, but beautiful, attractive, and welcoming came in number one. And the survey really served a great snapshot into confirming what we had heard at the visioning workshop and really guiding our next steps as far as developing those concept master plans. Next slide, Dylan. So we crafted this vision statement, which is not final, it's in draft form. And we have created another Zoom polling question. So I'm just going to read it out to those who are calling in. The town dock will be an active and vibrant gathering place that reflects the town's history and culture. It will retain its central focus as a publicly accessible shared amenity for the community while attracting new visitors to enjoy the town. So we're going to do a quick poll and see what your thoughts are, and thinking how does this vision statement stand? It's totally okay if this can evolve over time, so please give your honest answer. And Andrea, if we could open up that poll, that would be great. And while everyone is putting in their answers, we should mention that the follow-up survey to this workshop will also include this question, and you can provide some additional commentary or suggestions in that survey as well. So maybe give a few more seconds, and then we'll see the results. All right, are we able to see the results, Andrea? The votes in? All right, not bad. So nearly 75% agree with the statement, but we want it to be strongly agree. So if you have any additional, especially for those who disagree, we encourage you to follow up with the survey after this workshop, which will become available tomorrow. All right, the next slide, please, Dylan. So from the vision, the vision sort of our overarching statement, but through the visioning workshop and through the Looking Ahead survey, there were certain themes or trends, keywords that emerged from those exercises. And they were distilled to these 10, you know, we will call them guiding principles. And I'm not going to go through each one because more importantly, they help guide our big moves, which you've heard referenced this evening. And those are really the broader design principles that help guide our master plan options, which you will see this evening. We developed 3 for review this evening. So with that, I think I'll hand it off to Dylan to get into the big moves, which really sort of take these guiding principles to the next level. Thanks. And handing it over to you, Dylan.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Dylan. Everyone can hear me okay? Yep. So I'm just going to run through the big moves. And as Mishi mentioned, this was the next step between what we heard at the visioning workshop and all our background research. And it's the kind of constraints or the information feeding the master plans. So this is setting the scene for the master plans that when we're thinking about, you know, what we're going to put there, we wanted to make sure that we're meeting those guiding principles and developing master plans that achieve that vision statement. So I'll just run through them quickly. So number 1 is the reallocation of space. So one thing that came up in the visioning workshop, and we've seen a few or heard a few times, is that a disproportionate amount of the town dock is currently taken up with parking. And we feel that there's an opportunity to reduce and rationalize that, and then convert maybe some of that excess area into new uses, which could be for commercial opportunities or just gathering places. Another priority is separating pedestrian walkways to increase safety there. So separating the pedestrians from the vehicles. Consider relocating some of the aspects like the Tourist Information Center and the boat ramp. That's kind of an ongoing discussion of where that may go. And then allocating some space for commercial opportunities, because that was a key direction of the community strategic plan, was to maximize the economic potential of the waterfront. So how might that go? And then number 2 is continuous public access to the water. So we heard this come up very strongly. It was one of the top strengths was currently the public access to the water. So that's obviously an important aspect that we need to maintain in any plans going forward. And also a critical challenge that was identified was continuing that local and public access to the waterfront. So this could take a few forms, but I mean, it could be a boardwalk that wraps around the dock, or it could be a few other ways that it takes form, but just continuing that role that it plays. Number 3 is creating new public space for recreational use. So this could be either passive recreational use, where it's just a place for people to, you know, sit and hang out at the town dock, or it could be active recreational use. There might be opportunities for rental or, you know, some more structured activities in the future. And so uses will be considered that promote recreation as through either the TIC or equipment rental, as I mentioned. Number 4 is unlocking economic potential. So this is also something that's come up a few times, is how do we unlock the economic potential of the waterfront? So we've just identified a few areas where that could potentially happen. This also, some of the constraints play into this, where what can we do within the buffer from the sewage treatment plant? So commercial uses were not deemed sensitive. So that could be something that happens in areas that are currently just car parking. Could that be used better? And then also flexible spaces. So the flexibility of these spaces, it could be not necessarily a building that's permanently there with you know, storefronts, but it could be just flexible space where you can allow pop-up markets or temporary events. Yeah, it could be a very flexible space. Number 5 is connecting the town dock. This is also an important opportunity that was identified, was connecting the town dock to the main streets and to the parks. So that's an important one. And we have to think about how we direct flow from Main Street to downtown. So it's not taking away from any local businesses in the town, but rather maybe feeding them with some new customers. And a design that encourages walking and cycling throughout the town. And then also another aspect of this is improved wayfinding signage. So making sure that people know what's around and how to get there. Number 6 was establishing gateways to the town dock. So we've identified a few places where people enter the study area, whether that's from Main Street or the park or even from the water. And how do we make that a clear, inviting entrance? So how do we make it safe and accessible for pedestrians and cyclists and even boaters and vehicles coming from Main Street? And also an aspect of this is considering the relocation of the Tourist Information Centre. So is its current location the best location in terms of visitors? In some aspects it is, but maybe we could consider coming from Main Street or the parks, it's maybe more visible there. Number 7 is creating flexible spaces. So, I mean, this is a plan that will unfold over a long period of time. So it would be a phased approach. It's not all going to happen overnight. And how do we encourage or start that change? And one way could be through flexible land uses. So it might be a slow, gradual change, and you might have some markets pop up, and then in the future that could be more permanent commercial space. But yeah, just creating spaces that function differently in different seasons as well. It might function differently from the weekday to the weekend, or day versus night, and allowing for pop-up events, vendors, markets, and cultural and retail opportunities. So those are the 7 big moves, I guess, that where we developed, and then these big moves informed the master plans that we're about to go through. So with that, I'll hand it, oh, there you go. So all of these big moves have just formed the foundation for the master plan options. So I'll hand that back to Mishi to just conduct a quick Q&A if anyone has any questions based on what they've heard so far.
Yeah, just opening up to the audience. Again, if you'd like to type your question, please go ahead, but we'll just, if there's any questions on process or work done to date, we're happy to answer those questions now.
Hi, it's Anita, the Deputy Mayor. Just a question, was any consideration given to the redesign of the entrance into the dock area? There's a lot of space there that is not utilized, so I just wondered if there was some thought given to perhaps a redesign of that entrance, which would give us additional property to work with.
Thank you for your question, Deputy Mayor. I believe we will be getting into that in a bit more detail in the master plan options, and we'll actually show some of the reconfiguration that we've contemplated to date. Dylan or David, I'm not sure if either of you had a bit more information to add to that, but otherwise I think we'll get to it in the master plan options.
Sure, Mishi, I'll just add that as one of the gateways, the entrance into the site is a critical component. It's, you know, from many perspectives, it's the first time that people experience the town dock. So I think that's an excellent point, and it is something that we are considering, and something that we will be, as we talk through the master plan options, asking for feedback on directly.
Thank you.
Just wondering if I could ask a quick question.
Of course.
I'm just wondering if you have taken into account how busy our parking lots are during the summer, especially with all of our long weekends and our traditional July and August. To take away any of the parking would be a big problem in my view. We need that for our boaters. We need that because that is most of our residents that use that. So when you were asking in your study and in your questions, when you said access to the waterfront, a lot of people that I have talked to have said, well, that's what they thought it meant, that they were keeping their parking. The other point is that we derive a lot of our funds to fund all of this from the parking operations, boat slip rentals, and boat launch. So the more we take away, I was just wondering how you guys were figuring on we could pay for any of this or any new stuff.
Thank you, Councillor. Maybe I'll just start off by saying it's something that has been raised, you know, as a question in our TAC meetings as well. You know, and there has to, you'll see with the master plan options that they do range from a more conservative design to a more complex design. So the more conservative design retaining, you know, more of the parking than say the more aggressive. So, you know, we do understand that there are multiple sort of interests involved at this point. There is going to have to be a balance. There will have to be a phasing plan moving forward. But at this point, we based these plans on the feedback received from these visioning, you know, the visioning workshop, the survey, and I'm not sure, David, if you want to chime in there too on sort of the parking issue and
sure. Yeah, no, thank you, Mishi, and thank you, Councillor, for the Councillor Rose, for the question. Parking is probably the key item and the key challenge of identifying how the town dock itself is going to function. I will echo Mishi's comment that this is looking at a long-term vision. And as part of that long-term vision, there will be a phasing plan associated with it. We don't fully know what the future of cars will be like with you know, the Internet of Things, with the advent of autonomous vehicles. There could be opportunities for reallocation of parking that look very different than how it functions today. But I think you will see, as we go through the master plan options, that all the options include parking. The parking utilization study, I believe, showed over the summer of 2019, parking at 21%, but that is not to say that during long weekends and at other times that there was a greater demand for parking. So one of the items that we are also considering is the use of more formalized parking that can serve as flexible spaces, where when there is a greater demand for parking, it can be used as that for the boat launch. At other times, it can be used as other uses. But at this stage too, I will emphasize as we speak through the master plan options that nothing has been decided. And at least one of the options speaks to an opportunity of potentially relocating the boat launch to other areas. We're not going to focus tonight on where those other areas are, but that is something that we are asking for input into as whether or not that's something to explore. But I do want to emphasize that point taken regarding the parking. It is by far the biggest challenge that I think we have been struggling with at this early point in this study, between identifying the balance between placemaking and ensuring that people have access to all of their needs.
Councillor Levy here. I'd like to jump in if I may. I wanted to respond to the potential for relocating the TIC office. I would suggest that it would be most important to renovate the office, not to move it, and to understand the history of it, at least approximating the location of our former railway station. And if it could be left where it is with a major renovation, which it does need. We need accessible washrooms, accessible showers, a decent heating system in case we want to use it year round, which we used to do. So, and then regarding the parking, which we've all talked about, I would not favor greatly reducing the parking. You mentioned, David, the 21% parking during 2019, but 2020 it was about 150%. There were boat trailers all over. Part and parcel of that discussion of parking and the boat launch is whether we open it to the general public or keep it for North Simcoe residents, for Penetanguishene residents. Don't get too upset, Anita. I know we've been through that before. Anyway, I'm just throwing it out there that we have to decide who gets to use our launch ramp before we get to decide who is permitted to, how much parking we need, because they are very much tied. So, and I also wanted to comment that because I generally speaking, twice a day, I tour the launch ramp and the dock on my way to and from work on the main street. I understand it's becoming increasingly important to have a pedestrian walkway. And if we could combine a pedestrian walkway with a bike lane through that area, despite the fact that Canadians aren't terribly good at using bike lanes and walkways. We could send everyone to Nice for a few months and teach them, but however, and I just wanted to add that I'm not concerned about the sewage treatment plant. It's not my favorite place to have a sewage treatment plant, but many of our visitors think it's a condo building, so I keep encouraging them to think that way, since it's the most modern building in town. And I just also wanted to add in closing, I have much more to say, but I'll keep it to one more point. I forget what it's called, the CN Park, where Kitchikawana and the fountain that occasionally works are located. That could be utilized much better. We did at one point have an Art in the Park weekend. We did try to put our farmers market there during a very bad year. I think it was the road dig of 2018, but that's very valuable space that's completely visible to the main street, and it does actually connect the dock and the main street shops, which I believe is one of our goals, is that connection. And it's also, one more point, sorry, I said I was finished. The importance of signage going from the town dock into the park is the other connector. So it's all about connecting. And I know that was the basis of beginning this project, is connecting the downtown shops with the dock and the waterfront park. So utilizing that little parkway there would be an important piece of the puzzle. There, now I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are some great insights. And, we say, local history and culture are important. It's one of our guiding principles. However, these little, tidbits that we receive at these types of consultations, such as, the information about the TIC office and considering to renovate versus relocate, it's very important. So thank you for sharing that. And to echo the Deputy Mayor's comments about, making sure that gateway is prominent. There's some wayfinding from downtown, there's signage to connect, that with the surrounding area, and even from coming in from boat, right? There needs to be sort of these two gateways, from the land and from the water. So thank you so much for your comments. We will definitely consider those in our process moving forward. We have time for about one more question, and we will have a more comprehensive sort of Q&A at the end. But if anyone else has a burning question they'd like to get off their chest right now, we'll take one more.
Mishi, I see that there's maybe a question or comment in the chat. I don't know, I can read it out for the group. There's two, actually. So one of them is about, have we been giving consideration to the installation of electric vehicle charging stations in our plan? And thanks for that comment. I think absolutely would be looking at whatever we can, sort of green infrastructure in any parking plan. I don't think we've got to that level of detail and that specific on parking options, but it's something that we are trying to encourage all across the town. And then another question on consideration given to the environmental effects of what the town dock function will mean for the future of being next to a large body of water, such as water runoff, stormwater management, protection of existing habitats, and pollution. So that was a question as well, or comment, sorry.
Perhaps I can just speak to the last comment as well too. That will be directions that we will be speaking to in the report itself when we're looking at policy direction, and absolutely there will be consideration given to water runoff, stormwater management. One of the items that we'll be looking to is it's the acronym for it is LID, which is called low impact development. And it's looking at ways of using natural vegetation to decrease urban runoff and to decrease the impact onto bodies of water. So if we look to parking, for example, even the parking itself as well too, will have, there'll be directions around how to incorporate landscaping design throughout it to help with that type of issue.
Thanks, David. With that, perhaps we'll move on to our next section of the presentation this evening, which gets into the master plan options. So Dylan, perhaps we can move ahead, and I think we're going to send that back to David. Now, we do have a question or a request from the comments saying that before people are speaking, could they state their name? So I apologize. This is Mishi from Sejeki Planning, handing it off to David from Sejeki Planning.
Thank you, Mishi. And I get the fun part to introduce. What we've talked about so far has really been at the 10,000 foot level, and we're going to drill down to get into a bit more detail, talking around the three options that have been developed so far. And I want to make it clear though as well too that these options are high level. They are conceptual. None of these three options are being recommended as an option at this point. It's really here to request feedback from the public. I personally do not expect that any of these options will go forward as a preferred option. It will be likely a combination of the three of them with other components of them that are incorporated as well. But eventually, the input from tonight, as well as using these options as the basis, will work together for us to be able to distill one preferred option. And keep in mind too that these are looking at the ultimate vision for the site, and there will be a phasing plan that accompanies it. And we're also working with Strategy Corp as one of our key partners on the study, who are looking at the economic feasibility of the plans. So just mentioning again that these have been informed by work completed to date, including initial feedback received from the second technical advisory committee meeting. Again, implementation tools and strategies will be developed in later stages. The options start off with more of the option that is most similar to the status quo. And then as it moves over to option 3, that would be the option that proposes the greatest amount of changes from what is there today. You'll notice that in some of the options, the boat ramp, the boat launch, has been relocated. I want to be clear that that is for discussion purposes, and no decision on the boat ramp has been made. And as well too, that within all of the options, existing uses on site, including the dock lunch, can be accommodated on site. And again, no decisions have been made on any of those and would require further discussion. So with that, if we can turn to the next slide, please, we can start to speak to the initial options themselves. And I will add as well, I hope people's screens are large enough that they're able to read these, but I will add as well too that these, I believe, will be shared as part of the survey tomorrow. So you'll be able to provide detailed comment on these. And when we select a preferred option, we will also be preparing a 3D model. So you'll be able to see what that looks like in a 3-dimensional format. For the purposes of the 3 options, we haven't done that today. So this option number 1 is, again, most similar to what is there today. On the left, you see a series of 1 to 12 numbers, and those fit with the map on the right. We've also included a series of precedent images in the circular portion of the plan. The first one is number 1, which is where the Tourist Information Center is located. So this plan proposes to keep it in the same location, but to renovate it with improved facilities. Item number 2, which is the, I guess, just south of the Tourist Information Center, is a triangular park. So that would be a new public park. And the idea is that this could be a park reflecting the culture and history of Penetanguishene, including the local Indigenous culture. Item number 3 is a commercial area that could be seasonal. It could operate in the winter as a windbreak, and in the summer when there are larger amount of tourists or during festivals such as Winterama, these could be attractive cargo containers that could have commercial uses included within them. Number 4 is the introduction of a public square. Number 5, I guess it's actually number 5, 7, and 8, are formalizing the existing parking that is there, and looking at ways again of including some of those low impact development options to manage stormwater runoff. Number 6 keeps the dock lunch building in the same location. The boat launch is included within the same location. We have included between the sewage treatment plant and the parking a landscape buffer area. There is a potential, I don't know if it makes sense to have it right next to the sewage treatment plant, but with natural access to the bay, that could also be located within other areas. And there's just an idea within this of really trying to keep a lot of the existing function, but more normalizing some of the uses of the space and creating more of an attractive landscape area with some commercial uses. So that's option number 1. If we can move to the next option, please. So option number 2 is the middle option between 3 and 1. And it starts to make a few more significant changes. We've located within this option to the north a waterfront promenade that is located partially within where the existing Tourist Information Center is located. This Tourist Information Center is actually located, and it might be a bit hard to describe these without a pointer, but within what we've identified as number 5, a new commercial area. So it would be located in that area with a bit better visibility from Main Street. One of the key items within this plan is that outside of the 100-meter buffer of the sewage treatment facility is the opportunity to build a hotel. Oh, I didn't know that I can request to annotate and draw on the screen. But there isn't, if I can do that, I don't know if that's possible to have that option, Andrea, but I will identify it as number 2. Number 2 on the plan is a new, it can be a commercial area or it can be a waterfront hotel. And it has a passenger pickup and drop off area shown as number 3, with some parking located there for that. There is a public square identified as number 4. Number 7 provides a new pedestrian access to, thank you, Sarah, to the town dock. lunch, sorry, the dock lunch. The dock lunch remains in its existing location, but is renovated. Parking is identified, the majority of parking is identified by number 8. Number 9 is a green buffer zone with improved landscaping and trails. Number 10 provides an area for a park. And again, you can see reaching out of each of these numbers are pictures of what the area could look like as precedent photos. Number 11 is a new waterfront promenade extending along the southern boundary of the site plan. And that would be, it includes a wooden dock that people can walk along. And this can be designed with access to the bay as well too, although that can also be designed towards the north where we have the new integrated landscape design. It's identified as number 1. And that is option number 2. And option number 3, thank you, Sarah. This is the option that includes sort of the largest amount of number of changes. This does include relocating the boat launch. Number 1, towards the northern area of the site, is a waterfront promenade with access to the bay. This option includes a hotel, but the hotel actually extends out over the dock. So it would be built to be able to provide waterfront views, and it would be able to be seen both from land, but also from water as you're coming in. Number 2 is a landscape patio area with public access that is sheltered both by the building and by the bay itself. The dock area itself is revamped in this area, but there's still the space for boats. I'm skipping around a few of these numbers, but number 3 is identified as a passenger pickup drop-off area for the hotel. Thank you for circling that, Sarah. Number 4 includes a shuttle bus drop-off area. And so this would also relate to the tourist boats coming into the bay. So this would provide an opportunity, perhaps if people are willing, some people are willing to pay for parking, they can park within the lot 6. But for those that are okay with taking a shuttle bus from an exterior parking lot, there would be a quick bus going back and forth between the town dock and just external. Number 5 is an additional passenger drop-off area. Number 6 is on-site parking. Number 7 is again that green buffer zone between the sewage treatment plant and the rest of the town dock. Number 8, which is an idea that extends through all of them, is for a landscape area and park. There is a slightly more prominent promenade along the southern portion of the master plan. And one of the areas, and keep in mind too, that this is a long-term vision and that it will be part of an economic feasibility study, but is the idea of an elevated park. And from this elevated park, people would have incredible views of the water. You can see, I don't know, Sarah, if you're able to, thank you very much, an idea of what that could look like. Built into this as well too, there could be the options for perhaps looking at hosting events, Winterama festivals, an amphitheater type design. And so this is where we are at right now for kind of the big vision. And we have no idea where we're going to land. It's way too early for us to do that. So where we want to start is just by hearing what the feedback is on these options, and that's going to help us develop a plan. So with that, I believe I'm going to turn it back over to Mishi, and we're going to open up. We'll start with the question that we can vote on, and then we'll open up a bit of a Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mishi from Sejeki Planning, taking on the next slide. I believe is our final poll. So, been a bit of abstract art from our last markup. So yes, we're just wondering, this is a quick canvas of your most preferred option. As David mentioned, option 1 is more simple and baseline based on existing conditions today. And then third would be very long-term with more changes proposed. So we're just going to do a quick poll, and I guess as Andrea loads the question, I'll just also add that, you know, I know we've mentioned it several times now, but the survey that will be launched tomorrow gives the opportunity to vote on this again and add detailed comments. So don't feel like this is, you know, you're the only time to contribute your feedback. Sorry, I just saw a question pop up. What exactly is the gray? So I think, you know, if it's the dark gray, Dylan, maybe you can point to it, like in option 1, the dark gray areas, those would be parking. If it's looking at sort of the light gray areas, that would be more of the common public accessible walkways, etc. So it really does change in each option, and these options will be posted on the Connect Penetanguishene website. So you can take a quick, a more in-depth look. I know we kind of did a quick breeze through, but you don't have to vote right now, but if you'd like to, please go ahead and we'll see the quick tally. A few more seconds.
Just to confirm, Mishi, the light gray areas is probably what I was thinking of. I think it's just accessible area for pedestrians to walk around. So some kind of paver or hardscaping. It's all very conceptual at this point, so we haven't got into those kind of details yet.
Thanks, Dylan. Oh wow, so quite even. Option 1 came out first place, but really almost a third split. Permeable hardscaping, I would hope, and yes, thank you, Stephen. That is something that will be explored in the you know, in our approach, in our more detailed approach moving forward. As David mentioned, looking at LID, low impact development, best practices, and ways to incorporate a more resilient design that factors in, you know, stormwater management, etc. Thank you, Andrea, for sharing those results. So again, that was just a quick poll, but we're going to move on to a discussion period. If you could switch the slides there, Dylan. And we've prepared some questions to ask the audience. However, we would like to open it up to everyone at first, just to see if there's any questions you had about the master plan or the project in general, again, that have popped up since the first Q&A. We welcome you to, you know, voice those questions now or type them.
Hi, this is Mayor LaRue speaking. I'm not adverse to having the KIC building removed, but I'm certainly probably not in favor of seeing a hotel in that location. I know that at the last meeting that you had, I brought up the fact that a hotel at the dock area would probably be an advantageous thing to the dock area, but particularly in the location that is shown. Over the years, I've had a lot of comments from our ratepayers, our citizens, our people. They want the wide open space and views of the lake. Themselves. It's a $1 million view no matter where you look, and even today the KIC building takes away from that. And we've had a number of large boats, and the Georgian Queen, for example, when it was parked up ahead, had a lot of complaints about the views. And so I would like to see possibility of looking at a hotel in that, but not in that particular spot. And the KIC building itself is not the location where the train station was. I can tell you and show you where the train station was because I was one of the last people to party in it. So with that, maybe sometime we'll have a further discussion, whereas I would certainly like to take part of just roaming around down the dock. And, you know, whether a lot of people are aware or not, there used to be a turntable down there where the train used to come into Penetangwisheen. And the turntable was in a location where they turned the head locomotive around and headed it back out to town. So, and I understand that I have a good idea where that is still buried down in that area. So anyway, I like a lot of the ideas, but I'm not sold on having a hotel blocking water views. And with that, it would mean, yeah, moving the TIC building out.
Your Honor, perhaps I could just provide a bit of background on the location of the hotel. One area that we're still trying to work through is understanding the impacts of the sewage treatment plant with respect to a 100-meter buffer. The way we understand it right now is that overnight accommodation cannot be located within that 100-meter buffer. We're exploring that to see if those rules can be opened up. But if they cannot, the challenge with the hotel on the town dock is that outside of that 100-meter buffer, there's not a lot of land where it can be located. But we can do one of two things. One is we're looking at if that buffer can be loosened. And the second one is also if it cannot, I mean, the other two options are not a hotel in that location or ways to accommodate a hotel while still maintaining waterfront views.
Good. And I'm sure Andrea would be more aware of that than I am, but I do know for a fact that the distance from a sewage treatment plant applies differently to residential and commercial. So
it does. And I just wanted to answer one other question to Nishan. Sorry, then I'll stop interrupting. But that was just, I saw a comment saying, so to confirm option 3, proposal dock lunch is excluded. And none of these options is the dock lunch excluded. It's just that it provides the potential for it to be relocated within one of the existing buildings.
Well, David, another question that I perhaps have is that when looking at all these scenarios, there's that piece of property that we're showing as probably a little parkland or a little walkway through. That today belongs to Mr. Beduris. Was that property would have to be purchased from Mr. Beduris to accomplish this?
There would have to be, Andrea could likely answer that question better than I could, but one of the items that we identified right at the front is that this is all part of a visioning exercise right now, and that there would have to be discussions with Mr. Medeiros, absolutely. So the intention is not to, in any of these, to exclude his business operations.
David. Okay, we're receiving a lot of comments, which is great. However, I don't want to lose sight of them as they come in. So perhaps we will open it up to more verbal questions, and then we will address the comments aside from the one that David just answered. Does anyone else have any thoughts they'd like to share?
Hi, George Vadabonker. I have a question with respect to the entrances. When I look at the 3 options, all the entrances off Main Street and Beck Boulevard are configured the same way. And I was just wondering, given the multiple entrances at that location, whether a roundabout was looked at as a potential more efficient use of that area so that multiple entrances could, I guess, enter onto Main Street, enter into the dock, enter onto Beck, enter into a parking area, et cetera, et cetera. So just food for thought, perhaps that could be looked at as an option. When I look at the 3, there's a little bit of, it looks like the same type of entrance with lots of asphalt, and maybe there's a more efficient way that we can look at having that entrance into the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Noted, and we will most definitely consider that moving forward.
Councillor Levy here. I just wanted to mention that last Thursday, when Andrea was a guest at Economic Development North Simcoe, she mentioned potential redevelopment of the dock. And there were two very interesting comments. One was that the most important thing to one of our new residents and investors who's bought some Main Street properties is that when you are at the top of the street, you can still see right down and be wowed by the view. And that's what happened to me 30 years ago when I moved here. When I came to see this little town I'd never heard of and sat at the light and looked down and went, wow, I'm home, because of that unobstructed view. So I would not want anything to obstruct that view. And that was the EDCNS members' opinion. The other interesting thing that came from that meeting is a gentleman named Gord Salisbury, who's a board member, was chairing the meeting that day. And he did a study on our dock when he was still in planning school in 1981. And so some of his insights into what was done was really interesting. I'm sure Andrea or I can connect you with Mr. Salisbury. Yes, it's an old report, but I found it very interesting that he had done that. And you might too, but that's an aside. I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you. That's wonderful. No, we would love to connect with Mr. Salisbury moving forward. So we will follow up with Andrea about that. Thanks, Councillor. All right. Any other questions, or perhaps we'll move to some of the comments, because there's lots coming in. So there was some mention, some questions raised about the hotel and the potential alternative other sites, which we will look into moving forward. I don't think we'll. I think that one's pretty straightforward. Okay, if I want to present technology to the tech group, who should I reach out to tomorrow? Stephen, do you mind clarifying your question here if possible? Perhaps Stephen can't verbally comment, so maybe he can follow up with a comment in the comment box. Do not make us choose between large parking lots versus a hotel. The waterfront is for the people. Fair enough, fair enough. And I don't think at this point we're asking anyone to make any hard decisions. This is great feedback, and this is exactly the type of feedback we were looking for. So if there's a strong opinion about the hotel, then we will definitely.
Sorry, my mic was muted. It's Stephen here.
Oh, hi, Stephen.
If you look at the
background.
Yes, so I never thought I would actually bring this up in Penetang, but I manufacture those parking towers that are behind you, and we're installing them in London, Ontario this year. If you're looking for a parking discussion, I'd love to talk to you guys about that. I was entering this because I walk in the waterfront every day. I didn't think it was going to be a work-related meeting, but it potentially could be work-related. I talk parking 7 days a week.
Great. Okay. Well, no, definitely. If you can follow up with Andrea at the end of this this call, that would be great, and we connect and discuss more in detail. Thank you. Okay, and again, just to move down the questions here. So, some alternative locations for hotel. Fair enough. The dock lunch needs to be changed. We've heard different opinions around that topic, and I don't think it's fair that we comment whether it's removed or not. We do see it as being retained either in its existing location or a potential relocation, but again, very early stages, and that is all to be determined. So thank you for that. From Brenda, looks like Brenda is pleased to see a long-term exciting plan. Thank you for your feedback, Brenda. Consider costs at this point, but love the historical aspects and the cultural history. Form and function going forward are fabulous. Impressed with the conceptualization of all options, but 3 is most appealing. Thank you for the additional feedback. That's great. Who owns the property adjacent to the boat ramp? And this might be a question for someone on the project team, either Andrea or David. I'm not certain of that one.
Yeah, I can jump in. It's Andrea from the town. So there are two private property owners north and south of the launch ramp. So those are Nick's properties.
Thank you. All right. So moving along, Brian Scott put the boat ramp and trailer parking over at the campground. Okay, so thank you. Again, there's been some discussions in regards to potential relocation areas, but nothing has been decided. So we will definitely add that one to the list to consider moving forward. Okay, we have some agreements with Brian. Having a hotel located closer to the center of town. Okay, so again, another potential location to consider for a potential hotel. Relocation of boat ramp, same thing. Brian has some more upvotes. Okay, a new one. The town is potentially looking at a new rec center and a new curling facility. If a new curling facility were moved there, then the existing curling club site may be able to accommodate a new close to waterfront hotel. Okay, so again, considering different sites for relocation of this hotel. Okay, Ross Cooper, my opinion still is that the waterfront is not the area for commercial units. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. And really like the shuttle bus access idea would work for town transit, etc. Okay. Thank you to all those who have provided some comments in the chat box. We will, be saving all of these and do a more thorough review once we have our results from survey as well. So we do open it up. We scheduled this call until 8:30. So if anyone has any additional questions they'd like to ask or type in the comment box, by all means. All right. So maybe I'll move along. Dylan, if we could just go to the, we added these discussion questions in because we didn't know, based on what type of response we get from everybody, but we got some great answers. Now, I don't know if we'll open this up unless people have, perhaps if you have thoughts you'd like to share, then sure, but I understand we are short on time. So this question is also in the survey that will be published tomorrow. But if there's certain elements from your preferred option that you really want to see incorporated that you think are essential, we really encourage you to raise those in the survey, because there will be options to type out those answers in full. So I don't know if anyone wants to share any, again, burning thoughts at this stage, but otherwise we can you can direct those thoughts towards the survey. Seems like access and really the having those connection points at the gateway, from the downtown wayfinding signage, those seem to be raised a lot and are consistent with, back to what we heard at the initial visioning workshop. So it's nice to hear those consistent points hammered home. And perhaps we'll move to the next question, Dylan, and just some, I guess, more of planting a seed, food for thought for the survey when you're filling it out. As mentioned, these three plans or these three concepts are going to be posted online. And if you notice that there's something, missing, there's something that we've completely missed, now is the time to mention it. And again, you can provide that feedback in the survey tomorrow. And with that, maybe we can move ahead to the next slide, Dylan. And I'm going to pass it back to David and Andrea to close things off, talk about some next steps, and then we'll end with maybe a very quick Q&A at the end. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mishi. And Dylan, maybe you can actually move forward to the next slide after this. I will start. I'm going to turn it over to Andrea in a second, but I just want to say on behalf of the consultant team, this is exactly the type of input that we were hoping to get. and we're hoping that we receive even more on the surveys because they are going to inform. We've heard some very concrete recommendations today, and they are going to inform all of our plans. So I thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules. People may be at home a little bit more these days, but I know everyone is, even if they're at home, they're probably busier than ever. So very much appreciate that. In terms of our next steps, the survey will be launching tomorrow. There will be opportunities for hard copies as well. Andrea, I believe, can provide those, but I'll let her speak to that. Our next big meeting is a council meeting where we'll be presenting the recommendations from the draft secondary plan on May 12th. But I'm going to turn it over to Andrea, and then she can, I guess, have concluding remarks and talk a bit more about the next steps. Thank you.
Thanks very much, David. And I want to say thank you to everyone for being here tonight. I did a quick count there, and we have 44 people with us and about 24 from the public. So this is one of the better turnouts we've had for some planning studies. So I do appreciate everybody turning in. I know those options, there's a lot to digest and unpack and think about and consider. So can't wait to share this with you and the community. And so if you're talking to your friends and neighbors, you know, I know and we know that this study is getting the attention of the community, and it is so important, that it is our gem and our heart of our community. So really thrilled to have everybody participated and see the comments, and excited to see where this takes us. I can always be reached for questions. You can email me if you have questions or comments, and that will definitely get passed along. And then we have the Connect Penetanguishene website where you can access all of this information, the survey. The video will be posted for those who missed it. So tonight's presentation will be posted as well. But really, really excited to see this project progressing and moving ahead, and really want to see the plan when it comes out at the end of this. So thank you.